What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Hyundai Daily Driver video. And before we get started, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Sable Mountain, who had recommended saying the heads-up display has a brightness setting. I've set mine to full brightness and it's clearly visible even in daylight with polarized glasses. One of the issues that I was having previously was on my heads-up display. Whenever I was wearing my polarized sunglasses, I couldn't really see the heads-up display very well, and when you go to the actual settings and clicked adjust display, I had thought that this was it. I thought this was just all the settings that you had. I didn't realize, because you can't really tell, but you can actually scroll down here and there you go. There's your brightness. I've already cranked it up all the way up to 20, so shout out to Sable Mountain for that great recommendation. If not for this user, I would have never known about this specific feature, and I probably would have been struggling to see my heads-up display when I'm running the car with my sunglasses on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this next drive underway. I'll go ahead and flash up on the screen the current software version that we're on today. I know I'd shown it previously in the video at the beginning, but I did not call out the actual software version. So I'll throw that up on the screen for you guys to see which one we're on today, and we'll go ahead and get this drive underway. Today we're going to be doing just a tiny bit of city driving to get us onto the highway. So most of the driving today will be testing out the Highway Driver Assist and Smart Cruise Control 2 features. So we'll see how they handle today. It's currently 36 degrees here and a little bit windy out. Not that that should affect much, but thought that might be worth mentioning. Go ahead and engage our lane center keep. And I'm always curious, we've been getting a lot of comments recently about certain features on the car that I maybe should or should not have on. I'm always curious to hear from you guys, the community, on what you think is the most optimal driving experience for these Hyundais, and similar obviously to Kia, for what you guys enjoy for your specific driving experiences. So please let me know down in the comments what you guys enjoy, because I'd love to feature any user that has any useful and positive feedback to these videos. I'll always showcase them up on the screen, because I believe that if someone is sharing some useful information that I end up using, I would love to showcase who that user is, to give them credit. So if there's other recommendations that you all have, I'd be more than happy to showcase you all in the next video. Now, one thing that I have kind of noticed, if you haven't seen any of my previous videos, I'm coming from a 2023 Hyundai Tucson Limited into this 2025 Hyundai Tucson Limited model. And one of the great features that I love about this car is the camera that's displayed when you turn on your your blinkers. One thing that I've noticed, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this as well, is that in the newer 2025 and 2026 models is that once these cameras are displayed on my dash here, it seems like they're a little bit darker than the previous models. Even when I take my sunglasses off, they seem a little bit darker. I don't know if there's some sort of film or filter that they've put on these cameras for this model, but that's just something that I've noticed, is that the display seems a little bit darker, especially like right now we're underneath an overpass, so there's not much sunlight kind of coming through, but I've definitely noticed that these displays are just a little bit darker than the previous model. You'll have to let me know in the comments what you guys think. Alright, so we're now just coming up here, time to get on the highway, and once we are on, we'll engage the Highway Driver Assist, Smart Cruise Control 2 features, and see how today's car is going to be reacting to the traffic. Traffic seems kind of moderate right now. It's currently 9:40, so it seems, rush hour should be done and over with. But there still is some decent amount of cars on the road, so hopefully we'll get some good testing in today. Alright, so currently lane center keep is on, as you can see with the green steering wheel on the dash, and we'll go ahead and click our Smart Cruise Control. Right now our distance is set to 4. And we'll see how the car reacts in the tunnel. Got some nice smooth braking already. Cars in front of us are going a little bit slower. Got a great distance. Don't feel too close at all. With that further distance of 4, it should keep you far enough away from the cars in front of you where you feel that you are at a nice, safe distance. So yeah, right now the car is completely doing everything for me. I keep my hands near the steering wheel at all times. This is nowhere near, any autopilot capabilities, but it is actually kind of guiding itself on its own around this corner, around this curve. Without any user input, as well as the adaptive cruise control is kind of keeping me up to speed, but also at a safe distance from the car in front of me without any user input on the actual gas or accelerator pedal. See how we handle coming out of the tunnel. Get a little tricky here with this little curve and bump. Car handled it all right. Wasn't, I would say, as smooth as I would have handled it, just because I can kind of see a little bit further and know that there's a bump there. And but all in all, the car held its lane. It stayed in, and we did not veer off into any other lane. So I would say it passed that specific test right there. Again, staying at a nice distance of 4 behind this truck in front of us. Going to go ahead and switch lanes over here. When I switch lanes, it disengages the lane center keep, so I have to manually take over the steering wheel and actually change lanes. That is not a feature on this car where it'll automatically change lanes for you. But you can also see on the dash, I'm not sure if it comes across on the camera, but the green nav rectangle is illuminated right now, and I believe what that means is that the car physically knows where it is on the highway. So if there's any sharp curves or turns that are coming up, it'll actually slow the car down. Even if there is not a car in front of us, it'll slow the car down just to take that turn a little bit more smoothly. So we'll see how it kind of handles going around. It's a little bit sharper of a curve here. So far it's doing a great job keeping it in center of lane. Yeah, that was smooth. I wouldn't have handled it any differently. So that was a good job by the car on keeping center of lane right there. I'm always curious how the car kind of handles when it's dealing with bumps. When you're going over bridges like this. Here's another kind of sharp turn coming in right here. See how this handles. Again, no user input yet. Going pretty smoothly. Car did a great job coming out of this curve here, out of this turn. That was perfect in my mind. I wouldn't have done that any differently. Going back to what I was saying, sometimes when the car goes over a certain bump in the road, if you're on a bridge, going onto a bridge, and you can sometimes encounter a bump. Sometimes the car will either jitter or react in a way that seems like it's a little, in my mind, aggressive. So kind of like just like that. In this instance, it handled it fine. In the previous model, the 2023 model, sometimes it would struggle with certain bumps in the road and try to almost overcorrect and kind of create an unpleasant driving experience that kind of shifted the car in a very kind of jerky way that I didn't enjoy or kind of feel safe when it did that. So far in this 2025 model, I haven't experienced too many of those issues or really any of those issues at all. So it'll be interesting to see if we encounter any of those on this specific drive. So we're going to go ahead and engage the blinker. Again, it'll disengage the lane center keep, and I'll manually take over and switch lanes by myself. And again, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that it is a little windy. I can kind of physically feel that the car is being kind of pushed from left to right as the wind is going, but that doesn't seem to be affecting the car in any way in terms of how it's handling the lane center keep. So kudos to that for handling the wind as well. Got another curve coming up here. This usually is not a problem for the car, but again, could be different. We'll see how we handle it today. I know I do need to get over soon, but I kind of want to let this curve ride out on its own to see how the car handles before I do that. And yeah, that was pretty smooth. I wouldn't have done it any differently myself. So go ahead and engage the blinker again, manually switch lanes. We'll get back up to speed here as we get ready to continue to get over for our first exit. And the right seems clear, so we'll go ahead and engage the blinker again, manually take over, and we are back in the lane, and lane center keep is now engaged, so car is back to manually controlling the lane center keep and the adaptive cruise control with the truck in front of us. Car's doing a great job of keeping its distance of this truck in front of us, You can kind of see it's maybe the car in front of us is swerving a little bit. I don't know if that's the driver or potentially the wind pushing the car, but our car doesn't seem to be reacting to any of that, which is great. It's exactly what you want in a system like this. Got another curve coming up here with the exit. Pretty small. Car's handling it well. Now we'll see what will happen when we come up to this exit. Some lanes tend to split up here. So far it's keeping its lane. That was pretty good on the older model. Lane center keep may have disengaged, but so far this is doing great as we're coming off this exit here. We're supposed to be staying left, so the car is doing that. There is a pretty sharp ramp coming up to the left here. We'll see how the car handles. It seems like we're going to be going at slower speed because I can see that there's a tractor trailer slowing down up there, but we will see how we handle this bridge ramp, off ramp right here. So far the car is doing great. This is one of those instances where, I would be kind of cautious in my previous model with, so here's our first kind of keep hands on steering wheel warning. I'll go ahead and just kind of give the steering wheel a little nudge, let them know that I'm still here. But as I was saying on the previous model with a turn like this, I probably would have disengaged the lane center keep and just manually went around that myself, just because I know that it had struggled with turns like that in the past. But so far this 2025 model has done a great job of keeping the car in the actual center. So I'm going to go ahead and actually disengage the smart cruise control and the lane center keep because we do need to get over here. Thankfully that car next to us is getting over. Still get that warning. We'll just go ahead and wait a second, and the car behind us got over as well, thankfully. Even though it's in the other lane, we still get that warning. So go ahead and re-engage our lane center keep and smart cruise control 2, highway driver assist. Everything is on and acting as it should. We are still at a follow distance of 4. I've gotten some comments in the past that I typically would leave the follow distance at either a 1 or 2, and have gotten some close calls with the cars in front of me, and getting in a collision avoidance warning that has popped up on the screen before. So I've gotten some recommendations in the past to set the follow distance to a further either set distance of 3 or 4. So that's what I'm going to try and continue to do for these next future videos, just to kind of see the difference in how kind of the car handles. So far on this trip, it's doing a great job. Here's another instance sometimes with the previous model when there's a ramp or someone is getting onto the highway. You can see that the lane kind of splits, and it may lose visual of the white line on the right side of the road kind of as it comes in. That was an issue with the 2023 model that I would see quite often, but so far on the 2025 model, I haven't really noticed any of those issues when the lane kind of splits in cars. There doesn't even have to be a car there, but just kind of when the lane splits from the dotted lines on the left to the solid white line on the right side of the road may kind of disappear from the car's visuals. But so far I haven't had any of those issues with this model, which has been great. So I do have to say this follow distance of 4 is definitely feels a lot more comfortable if that's the kind of driving you're looking for. It leaves plenty of space from the car in front of you. The only thing that I would probably notice or recommend is that, if you're traveling, let's say in the fast lane, and you're at a follow distance of 4, sometimes, certain drivers can get a little, if you want to call them, pesky, and they can see maybe around you and see that there's quite a far distance, and maybe they think you're not kind of keeping up to speed. I've had that instance happen to me one time where I could see a car behind me. I was on a follow distance of 4. I was maintaining the speed of traffic, but maybe they saw that there was far enough distance in front of me, and they thought that they could just come around, and they did kind of come around and just kind of get in front of me to be the car in front, even though we still ended up going the same speed. So see how we handle with this car coming on. Yeah, so I got a little bit confused. That blue car was getting off. Our car thought it was able to speed up because it didn't see anything, and then we had this black sedan kind of also merging on at the same time, so we kind of got a slight speed up and then a little brake at the same, almost the same time, following each other. As a human driver, I probably would have applied the brake, and not applied the brake, but I would have just let the car coast, let the black sedan merge on, and then kind of continue on my way. But that's just something this car can't really see or predict at the moment. So that's kind of how I assume it kind of handles these situations where it sees the car in front is moving out of the way, so it says, hey, there's space for me to speed up and get back up to the set speed. And then it also, a second later saw, okay, there's a car merging on, maybe let's brake and get that distance back to the set distance of 4 to allow this car on. Here's another sharp turn, also with an exit. I didn't see any disengagements with the lane center keep, which was great. And handled it very well. No disengagements. I found also just something that I've noticed as I've been using these newer smart driver assist features is, I'm starting to kind of care less about getting into the fast lanes and, having to get to my destination as quickly as possible, and kind of hanging out and chilling in the right lane or sometimes the middle lane, and kind of just letting the car get me there, and I'll get there when I get there. If I need to leave a little bit earlier, then so be it. I'm kind of less concerned about having to be, the fastest car on the road, or driving at a higher speed. And I've been kind of comfortable with just, sometimes I'm driving underneath the speed limit because the cars in front of me are going a little bit slower. And, sometimes that's okay. If I'm not in a rush to get anywhere, which a lot of the times I'm not really trying to rush to get anywhere, I'm completely fine with just kind of hanging out in the slower lanes. And if we go a little bit slower, then so be it. At the end of the day, if you do the math, you're really maybe only saving, a minute or two. So it's not really that big of a difference. So in my mind, I'm okay with that. But, everyone has their own driving style. And, if you want to drive in the faster lanes, that's obviously your driving style, and that's completely fine with me too. Everyone's allowed to drive the way that they want to. This is just kind of how I've come to differentiate my driving style over the years. So I went ahead and disengaged these Smart Cruise Control Highway Driver Assist, and I'm going to manually take over from here, just because we are getting off at the exit and getting close to our destination. So, I think that this was a successful Highway Driver Assist Smart Cruise Control. In my mind, I had 0 engagements from the car itself. The only disengagements were manually done by me when I needed to switch lanes or I needed to get off at an exit. But I didn't really feel like there were any true disengagements that needed to happen because I either felt unsafe or the car was getting too close or speeding up too much. So I would, consider this a very successful drive. So if you found this video helpful or interesting, feel free to subscribe or give a like to this video. It truly helps me out and the channel out. If there's any questions that you guys have, or any comments or feedback that you'd love to share with the community, I'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. Again, if there's any recommendations that you guys have, I always like sharing that with the community. In my next videos, I'll kind of show up on the screen the user that shared the information, so to give them credit. I love sharing things with the community. This is a learning experience for me, learning experience for anyone who's maybe interested in purchasing one of these Hyundais or Kia driving system. They're all kind of similar. But with that said, we're going to end the video here, and we will see you guys in the next video.